Hi guys, this is the third video I've made since my introduction, and this is probably one of the most interesting for me. I've been in a strange, uncomfortable space since the last video that I filmed just over a week ago, and yeah, it's been very interesting for me because the first two videos that I created, I did while I was in a fairly positive space, I could say, a space that felt like upliftment, and I felt like I was connected. I don't feel like I'm not connected at this point in time, but I've had an interesting couple of days where my awareness has been directed at sort of discomfort that's around being created for me around certain things that are happening in my world. And the thing, so it took me a little bit of time to get to this video, a couple of days. I tried to sit down a few times and it just didn't materialize. I didn't feel totally comfortable, and I wasn't sure that what I was going to share was going to come from the correct place. So that is a very interesting part of the process for me, because these videos are new, or this idea of sharing what my experience with other people is new to me. Um, I want to be very cautious about the space that I'm in when I speak, and where where wherever where my intentions lie when sharing with other people about my experience, because I have a range of experiences, and I want to share the correct ones in order for other people to benefit from them, or for my shares to be as beneficial as possible. So this to describe the space that I've been going through, I can start the last couple of days, just feeling I feel connected. I feel like I've been interacting with other people and my surroundings and things that are going on, you know, um, with me and around me, and within the ecosystem that is my life. Um, but I notice that I've been taking offense to certain things that have been happening, and my friend Michael, who has, like I've said before, has kind of encouraged me indirectly to create these videos. He speaks a lot about this mother theory, this mother complex, going into that safe, comfortable space, and I've mentioned it before. I know that, and I think it's one of these things. I have these moments, and when I feel I am connected, I have these moments where certain topics and certain ideas uh, are come up for me on a regular basis. Sometimes two, three, four times in a week. Maybe it's once a month for 3 months. And by the time I've heard this suggestion or this idea two or three times in a row, I start to think to myself, okay, maybe this is a message. Maybe there is something in this that the universe is trying to, illustrate to me, or direct me towards. So this complex for me is very important, because it it's based on me staying in within my comfort zone, within the comfort zones that I'm conditioned, to to get into, um, and those comfort zones go very well with certain roles that I've found have been presented to me throughout my life. So if I'm a hard worker, if I'm a good boy, if I'm a stunning boyfriend or a great husband or a good son, I can fit into this role. And if I do all the things that the role suggests to me, like get a job, get an education, um, work an 8 to 5, work in an office, if I do all these things get a religion, do all these things, then I can stay within my comfort zone and I can live like that for the rest of my life. That is not true for me. I find that my life and the way my life works and what keeps it interesting, not that I'm looking to make it more interesting, but what keeps it interesting is for me to do different things, get out of my comfort zone, try new experiences. And when I start to get comfortable, the reason for me actually filming this video today is because this is something that is sitting so strongly with me. I get into my comfort zone and somebody throws a suggestion at me, actually 2 or 3 suggestions, or 2 or 3 people throw suggestions at me, and I realize how strongly I feel against those suggestions. I know that I'm getting comfortable. I'm going into that fetal position, figuratively, and I'm becoming comfortable in certain aspects of my life. In order to grow, I always say, I feel like I've said it before in one of these videos, discomfort and growth. It's a kind of prayer that I've said throughout the year, this particular year, something that's come up for me a lot, and I think it's something that I will, looking forward, I'll always try to remember. And putting myself in these uncomfortable situations, and immersing myself in this discomfort, it's the way that I grow, and the longer I stay aware, the more conscious I become of what's going on for me, and what's relevant at this point in time. The more I end up feeling, the more emotions I begin to tap into, the more stories I become aware of that I'm telling myself. The deeper that digging goes inside me, and I start to look for these ideas or these answers or these stories that I've been telling myself for a long time. I start to ask, what are they, and why am I telling these stories, and why are they so important to me, and why do I want to hold on to them so badly, and like in particular, which story is it that causes me to feel so uncomfortable when I'm questioned, or when people say something which I feel questions my integrity. This is a bit of insight into what's going on for me at the moment. I'm trying to identify these things, and something else that is happening, which is strange, is I don't feel totally comfortable, sharing this with I'd say particular people, but I feel something that's been happening for me lately is I've been explaining this similar situations or the same story to 3 or 4 different close friends, and I feel that when I tell the story 3 or 4 times, I start to create a certain narrative for it, and after about a week or 2 of picking up on this, I was able to start changing the way I was telling these stories to other people, and leaving out certain details there, but also just coming back to the fact that I don't need to tell everybody everything, particularly about myself, and there's also power in silence, So when I am struggling, it is important for me to reach out to somebody and say, hey, I'm feeling this way. I just wanted to let somebody know, not to have to hold on to that. But I don't have to tell everybody what's going on for me, I don't have to tell everybody the full story, So it's interesting because part of my journey has been encouragement to share, people encouraging me to share with other people, to share my feelings, to share what's going on, and I guess for me, the most important part about that has not actually been sharing it with other people, but when I share it with other people, I say it out loud, and there's a certain part of me that has to honor what I'm sharing about, and by telling it to another person, I'm giving it a certain amount of light, and I'm indicating in some form that it is true. So if I do feel like I haven't come to terms with the reality of something, sharing it with another person makes it more real for me and helps to break down any potential denial about a situation. So yeah, as I said, the patch, or the process that I'm going through now, is this awakening of emotion around surrounding vulnerability. Um, there's this potential rejection that if I get vulnerable with too many people, people won't accept me in the same way. If I get too honest, people are going to think I'm weak. But at the same time, I do know that the more vulnerable I get and the more I share, the better my connections become with people and the more intimate. I still have to be very careful about who I share the details on the vulnerability with. You know, um, you'll notice that in this video I'm speaking from my experience, but I'm withholding any specific detail as to what is actually going on for me. Um, because I think it's possible to explain without it, and it's also basically irrelevant. I go through different loops, I go through different phases, and I'm able to explain it with emotion, without going into the details, and that's also part of the process for me. Um, I'm a very chatty person. I'm a very social person, and I like to talk. And it's been very interesting to me holding that power in silence. Something that kind of been practicing through meditation. That the answer is not always gained through talking. And at some point I need to sit down with myself and reflect on the situation. Sometimes, particularly what I'm going through now, part of the reason why I created this video today is because I feel that sitting on this particular day is very difficult. And to sit with what I'm going through, I needed some sort of preparation, or some sort of untangling before I could do that. And I'll most likely get to do it after this video, once I've spoken out to what's going on for me, and the magic of it is I want to share how I've been instructed to make to help myself to grow. And by explaining these suggestions to other people, I remind myself that I need to do it. And it kind of gets put in better context of what I need to do. So particularly for me at this point in time, that there's a feeling of self-righteousness, and a need to cling to these, or a desire rather to cling to the things that are making me feel safe in my life. So certain experiences, certain friendships, certain relationships that seem pleasant, that seem comfortable, that seem cozy, certain habits, certain places that I go to, certain foods that I eat. I decided I was going to make this video. I made myself coffee, and coffee is one of those things at the moment which I notice I don't always want, but my mind registers it as a comfortable treat. So if I don't really feel like doing something, a coffee will get me in the mood. Which isn't always true, and my body doesn't always agree with that. Sometimes it will actually accelerate my the the rate at which I'm thinking, which kind of makes me overshoot the task or makes it difficult to focus, But it's one of those habitual comforts that I have, that I want to go back to automatically, because my conditioning comes in the form of going for the easy task, or going for the easy fix, going for the self-soothing um, the self-soothing activity that's going to make me feel safe and comfortable and prevent me from having to look at what's going on under the surface, what is coming up for me, which emotions are coming up, and it's going to, by self-soothing and by entering that safe space, I get a bit of time, a bit of extra time to avoid whatever's going on under there, It doesn't last too long for me. I think this has been an interesting couple of days. It's lasted 3 or 4 days for me, which, it's different every time, and these things come up for different reasons. But, if I can explain it vaguely, it's, I feel like I've been enjoying certain aspects of my life, and things are moving forward. Work is moving forward. My friendships are moving forward. The general, my general progress in my spiritual growth is moving forward, to some degree. But I feel like as if I can't enjoy a lot of the experiences, as I did before, because I don't know, I'm a little bit more aware, you know. Um, I can't enjoy watching TV as I did 2 months back, 3 months back. There's certain things which kind of excite me around that area, um, but it just doesn't do it for me anymore. And there's nothing against that. It just doesn't work for me at this point in time. It feels when I do it like a counterproductive or destructive behavior. And I get left feeling frustrated and confused because watching TV used to be a safe activity for me. When I had had enough of the day, that of an emotional day, I could watch something and tap into that fantasy world. Forget about my own life and watch somebody else's. So that's not happening for me at this point in time, and it's a bit intimidating. I've been experiencing something different where the gap where I would normally do that, I would do it in the evening just before I would watch an hour or two of series or TV before I went to sleep, and I can't seem to do that anymore. So I have this gap of I get to the evening, and work hasn't really been something that I've been doing in the evening. It's naturally just stuck between normal daytime office hours, and I'm left with this period of what do I do now? What do I do to entertain myself? And it's very interesting, yeah, to take away that comfort and to see what comes up for me, and to sit and watch myself wriggle and watch myself look for new ways to self-soothe and to just get rid of that feeling, distract myself from that feeling. I had 1 or 2 evenings where I just went to sleep. I tried that, and it didn't really work because I just woke up 2 or 3 hours earlier, and I was left with the same predicament. What do I do now? Um, I find there's a little bit more time for meditation in that, but there's still, still, it's a large part of that has just ended in me sitting with that discomfort. Even though I feel like I have that strong desire and urge to distract myself, I still end up having to just sit with it. Um, so that, I think it kind of comes back to the whole point of this video is me sitting with those feelings of discomfort. It's there are times that I go through where I don't like what's happening. I don't like the particular process, and there's this kind of concept that, if conditioning concept, I believe that if we get to a certain place or certain objective, we'll be safe. If I get a job, if I get a bond, if I get a car, if I get a family, I've got a wife, if I've got all this stuff, I'll be safe. I'll be exempt from discomfort, unhappiness, whatever it is that I'm trying to run from. I'll be more exempt from my feelings. And that's not. I don't believe that's the case. I kind of like to think about it in a way that if I'm living in the future and I'm looking towards the memorable experiences and I'm trying to forget what's happening right here and right now, I'm going to be doing that for most of my life, and the amount of experiences I'm actually going to enjoy are going to be 3 out of 10, 30% of the time I'm going to be having a good time, memorable, and I probably won't enjoy those because the other 70% of the time I'll be so wrapped up in anxiety and creating this hype for those, uh, for those experiences that are going to happen 30% of the time, and that anxiety for me is very dangerous. That I can't live like that. I can't live waiting for a certain moment or a certain event to bring me contempt. So yeah, as I said, this is probably one of the more difficult videos because while I'm speaking, I'm realizing that a lot of these lessons that I learned in the past are kind of very relevant for me now. I realized how there's 2 or 3 things happening this week that I'm kind of depending on. I'm saying, when this particular money hits or when this particular client calls me, I'll be safe. I can run away from these feelings in one way or another. I was thinking of the weekend. I had a fairly good weekend, but I was thinking over the weekend. I can't wait for work on Monday because I can give my brain something else to do. And I started out this morning. There were a few things to do, but there's also a bit of a gap. I've got things to fill that time, but there was nothing that was really, super urgent and compelling me to do. I've got to do this right now. So I found myself sitting with that same feeling that I've been trying to escape from all weekend long. And I think what's magical for me today is that I don't have to try and run away from my feelings in extremely self-destructive ways. There are certain things that I do which can stunt my spiritual growth now. Or there are certain ways that I can proceed which can stunt my spiritual growth now. But I come from the way I got to where I am today, and the way I look at my journey going forward comes from a place where I originally chose behaviors that were very self-destructive, and going forward, I'm trying to remove as many of those as I can, to get to a place where, I can realize when I'm moving back towards that comfort. I can say to somebody else, look, I'm struggling to get real, struggling to get honest. I'm struggling to step out of my comfort zone, And I believe there will be times where I go into my box a little bit. Nobody's perfect. Everybody has a slightly different journey. But, for me, I think one of the lessons learned is that the longer I avoid these feelings, whatever they are, vulnerability, guilt, shame, discontent, these feelings that I peg as negative, the longer I avoid them, the harder it becomes to feel them, and when I suppress them, they can potentially turn into physical ailments, if I suppress them for long enough. So, moving forward, I I want to stay I want to stay vulnerable wherever possible. I I do still believe there's a lot of discomfort in growth, and or a lot of growth in discomfort, and getting used to. I always think of it like a roller coaster, Um, when I do certain things like go dancing in a safe space, or go relate authentically with other people in a controlled environment, those things really take me out of my comfort zone, and occasionally I back away from them. I'm like, whoa, that is awkward, or that is weird. I had that experience with the yoga class the other day that I did, and I thought to myself, there was something uncomfortable for me. I felt slightly embarrassed in that space, something about myself which I didn't feel, and I didn't particularly want to go back straight away, but I've been through a couple of those experiences, and my gut is telling me that, or my experience has taught me that, when I'll leave it for today, I don't have to make the decision today. But when it gets to next Wednesday or next Thursday, I'll probably have forgotten about that experience last week, and I'll go back into that space. And if I go back into that space repeatedly, I'll soon realize that nobody there is actually judging me, So, those feelings of rejection, of potential judgments, they're not real. The stories that I'm telling myself because I feel inadequate. So, that's a very good example for me, and happens on a regular basis. And the more I talk about this, the more I realize that um, I'm just in a very sensitive phase right now, and I have to be able to honor these feelings. I have to be real about what's going on for me. I can pretend that everything's fine. I can go on without saying a word, but it doesn't benefit me at the end of the day. If I keep going back to the safe activities, I keep going back to the safe places, or even if I just don't share it with anybody at all throughout that period, it doesn't really do me much good. I find, when I put myself in these situations, and I want to wriggle like a worm, and, and and I feel uncomfortable, and I feel like I can't be there any longer. That's where the growth lies. That's where the work is. The work is happening. And that is part of my spiritual journey. So thank you for listening to this video. It was a bit different for me. I felt a bit all over the place, and felt like I was potentially bringing my situation up for other people to examine, which is a bit more vulnerable. My mind is creating all these stories, like way more than usual, because of the space that I'm in. How do I look? Does it matter how I look? Is my top okay? Can you see my hood? Does my hood make me look scruffy? Are people going to judge me for sharing what's going on honestly? But like I said, those times when I share really truly about what's going on for me is when I make the best connections, and when I get totally vulnerable. So yeah, thanks for watching. If you haven't, go like the Facebook page, the Ashram, and subscribe on the YouTube channel. That's where I'll be posting this video, obviously. And let me know any feedback, any potential. If you think I went too far, if you think I didn't go far enough, if you can relate, send me a message, comment on the video, comment on the Facebook post. My plan is eventually to create some form of extra community. I haven't had the time to go too deep into that. I've got some ideas, and they will be slowly starting out over the next little while. But for now, just speak to me, speak to the page, get involved. I'd love other people to be discussing this stuff, instead of a 2D channel that's me sharing to you and you taking it back on your own, because I know these experiences aren't particular to myself. they're experiences that everybody has. I just happen to be talking about them, this way. So thanks for listening and have a great day.